It's a budget deck, YouTube. How much could it cost? $10? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for a budget Legacy video. And just so we set expectations, in Legacy, when we're talking on a budget, we're talking like under $1,000. So we're still talking pricey-ish decks. Now, unquestionably, the best budget deck in the format is just Oops All Spells. In its current iteration, you can just buy a tier 1 top of the format deck that's so good a card might be banned from it in the next week or so. You can buy that for, $600-700, somewhere in that range, maybe less depending on exactly which version of the build you're going to be doing. That is unquestionably the best budget entry point into Legacy, assuming the deck is still legal, which I don't know if that's actually a safe assumption. Ugh. But today, Large John has challenged me to put together a budget Legacy deck that is under $1,000 that is more interactive. And I want to start by sharing a resource that I found while doing my research for this video. So I found a really nice Reddit post that linked to a Google Doc by Uberderb that goes and gives a breakdown of possible budget lists, some of which are playable as is, and some of which kind of have upgraded sort of paths to complete the deck. And it is surprisingly thorough. So they listed a budget version of Oops All Spells coming in at $340. So depending on exactly which sideboard version you are going to do and which colors, like you can make that deck real cheap. But kind of as you look at the price tags here, even the stuff that is intentionally built on a budget with suboptimal cards still ends up being pricey. And I will link this in the video description right below my blurb about the deck that I'm going to play. The biggest constraint in Legacy is the mana base in terms of budget. So if you want to play an interactive deck on a budget, you're either going to be substituting things like shock lands for dual lands, or you're going to be playing a monocolored deck, which is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to play my least favorite archetype of all time, Merfolk. As we all know, Merfolk as an archetype has never won a match in any format, has never been good in any format ever, but we're going to give it a shot today and see if I, the brilliant deck builder, can finally make Merfolk playable. Now, why do I want to do this? Number one, when you're playing on a budget, you want to do something unfair, and turning all of your opponent's non-basic lands into islands sounds pretty unfair to me, and if we can do that in an uncounterable way, that sounds pretty good to me. Number two, we have interaction. We have Force of Will as free spells. We can get a couple of Force of Negations in under budget as well. And we have the ability to interact with some of the broken lands that Legacy has to offer. And you can even play some main deck tech against Reanimator decks. Mistcaller has an ability where you can sacrifice it, and if a non-token creature would enter and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. And if I wanted to hedge very specifically against Blue-Black Reanimator, I could max out on 4 of these. But instead, I want to play a new card from Aetherdrift. I want to see if this is reasonable. Mindspring Merfok. So it has an exhaust ability, meaning that you can activate it only once, but you can just draw X cards, and put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk creature you control. Merfolk, conceptually, would like to get the opponent dead in the early game, playing a tempo role, by doing things like slamming Lord after Lord, sometimes copying those Lords with Phantasmal Image or Mockingbird. You can make very large creatures quickly. And then if you have some way to get your opponent's blockers out of the way, or island walk so that they can't physically block, or you just kind of tempo them out with a counterspell, like, you have real paths to victory. And despite the fact that I hate this archetype, I think this could be a reasonable budget entry point to Legacy, and honestly, Merfolk cards are pretty easy to trade for. Of the stuff on this list, unless you are specifically playing a Merfolk deck, very few of these cards see any degree of Legacy play. Especially not this one. Harbinger of the Seas is kind of the most playable card outside of like Force of Will and the lands that are in this deck. So, with our ability to hate on mana through Tideshaper, Harbinger of the Seas, and Wasteland, hopefully we can be carried to victory. This deck, depending on which pricing website you use, will come in right around the $1,000 mark. A little under it if you use some of the cheaper sites, a little over it if you use some of the more expensive sites. But the thing about this is you could probably get this deck down to about $600 if you dropped the null rods, which I think are like $150 each now, and the Force of Negations, which I think are somewhere on the ballpark of $60 each. So like you can drop $400 from this deck instantly if you just don't want to play some of the more powerful sideboard options. And like if you adjust your deck for a slightly different metagame, like you can maybe even get this deck down to like $500 or something like that, which sounds pretty reasonable by Legacy standards. So let's get in there with the fish people. If you need to order any Merfolk cards, you don't have them because they're not good, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order when you do, and you always get free shipping, even if you are ordering Merfolk. And if you need your Merfolk right now because you're crazy enough to play them in a tournament, you can also pay a little extra for some expedited shipping. So, prepare to enjoy my suffering as we cast some Merfolk, and maybe I'll 5-0, and then I have to like stop shit-talking Merfolk for a little while. Let's battle. I think we're going to try to believe in the Aether Vial here. I really need a Lord for this hand to work, but I do just have a way to rip a shit ton of cards twice. I think I'm going to try to believe in the deck. Cloudpost, you say? Well, I have some thoughts about that personally, and I'm going to have some more thoughts about that. This is on cast, right? This is kicker? Yes. So I won't vial this one in. I will cast this one when I get to 2 mana. Oops, more Cloudpost. So we're going to drop our vial in. We can turn Cloudpost into Island, and then start vialing in Duders. This one is not likely to be very good here. I would like to obliterate my opponent's lands or turn them all into islands. And I am hoping they don't put creatures into play. Well, fuck me. Alright. Rip my entire goddamn deck. This is just like unbeatable. I'll still shut the Cloudpost off in the short term, but I just literally can't beat this. God damn it. Concede? Yeah, I think I am just dead. I can't put more creatures onto the board to pressure my opponent. That results in me paying with Tabernacle and then everything getting nuked. This is awful. And now, like, my Mindspring Merfok is also off. No. No. Alright, Consign to Memory is great for the One Ring style things. I think I'm in a Null Rod for the One Ring. I could Force of Negation. It would be mid. Mistcaller can go here. My opponent is going to cast their large creatures. And I can probably do something like trim a couple of Floodpits Drowners. They're not great. I could play Force of Negation to just really hedge against the One Ring sticking, because that is a problem card. Force of Negation is going to miss a decent amount of stuff, but countering Karn's Silex apparently also is going to matter. So, like, we are going to be much better against that. But what a fucking beating. Okay, so this is awkward. I don't have the blue stuff for this, but I just lost so badly to Null Rod that I might actually just keep this hand. I pitch one of these Mindspring Merfok to Force of Negation unless I draw a Lord, in which case I can consider keeping this around. We're also rocking the Null Rod Aether Vial combo, so we got that going for us. I'm going to let that resolve. Again, it's the artifacts that I need to counter the One Ring and Karn's Silex. Ah, yes. Sowing Spawn will come along as well. Delightful. I don't Null Rod immediately. I think it's correct to just get our beats on. Now, this can have a Sacrificing Merfolk to counter non-creature spells. So the Mindspring Merfolks become a lot better if every single one of them is just a Force Spike Laner Nexus. So, sure don't get to interact with that. Force of Negation misses it. The Hex Catcher misses it, so I am just going to get Wastelanded. Nope, I'm not going to get Wastelanded. My opponent's going big. But this 3/3 body is just in the way. I'll get through it eventually, but it is a little bit of a nuisance. So we will throw down a True-Name Nemesis that can be attacking for 4. I've got a counterspell. I've got a Null Rod. Things are going okay. We'll see if I lose 2 lands to a kicked Sowing Mycospawn this turn. This Ender's tapped. I'm going to let it resolve and lose to Post-Aetherdrift. That's great for me. So let's get in for our 4 with True-Name. Puts our opponent to 14. Do I care about kicking this next turn? Or do I want this in play as a Force Spike? I might care about kicking it on my own island. I think I save this. So if we get got by second Post-Aetherdrift, that is a crop rotation. That is resolving, because my opponent has done it on my turn and my Force Negation is not live. It is Eye of Ugin. That is Kozilek's command for X equals 3. I could counter that by sacrificing both of these. Get got by a Spirit Guide if I do. The Hexcatcher is just not enough taxation after the first 2 turns of the game in this matchup. Cool. Cool. So there goes my lands. This is just going to be like a Tabernacle. I mean, it could be a Wasteland too. It is Yavimaya instead, which probably means that something disgusting happens right now. I will take the 3 from Sowing Mycospawn. I don't think that is worth trading both of my bodies for. But I think I lose to Eye of Ugin on my opponent's next turn. And I power through. Not really. So we're going to turn a Cloud Post into an island. My opponent will do their Eye of Ugin search in response. Just getting a Sowing Mycospawn. Yeah. Can't cut them off of green. So I guess I will cut them off of Cloud Post bonus mana. Oh, this sucks. Like, Sowing Mycospawn is a fucked Magic card. My opponent can exile one of my lands, pick up Tabernacle, kill everything I have other than True-Name, and just kill me with double Sowing Mycospawn. And the Sowing Mycospawns have dodged both of my pieces of interaction and ignored my mana destruction. So if you're wondering why Legacy content creators are saying, like, this card has to go, this is the pressure that it puts on decks. So I lose Cavern, and I presume this is Tabernacle, and I will concede to it. My opponent can attack for 9 per turn cycle, and I can only attack for 3. Oh, alright. I mean, that probably wins, too. I am just going to take this damage, and maybe I draw a land, and I pivot to being the beatdown. My opponent attacks for 9 next turn, I am at 11. Oh, there's more. Is there just one more Sowing Mycospawn after this? No. Negative. So I'll attack for my 4, and maybe we can turn this into lethal next turn. The plan is, if I'm given a target, do this. Oh my god. That sure makes it harder to close out the game. Well, there's one more Sowing Mycospawn left in the deck. Would you like to Tabernacle away every card that I do? Isn't this fun? Nothing I did all game mattered. Ban Sowing Mycospawn. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I could say all sorts of great things about them, but I'm just going to point to this number. I have 488 deck lists stored on this site. That should give you a feel for how I feel about this website. And if you were to go to my profile, you could see all the deck lists that I'm messing around with, including my EDH decks, and you can even see some of the deck lists I record with before they hit the channel. Ooh. Alright, let's do it. We have a reasonable looking Vial hand. This hand is much better if I am on the play. Island pass. Let's do the Aether Vial thing. It's our Called Shot in the Dark sneak and show. Some sort of blue Ancient Tomb stock up bullshit. Hey, stock up bullshit. The Tide Shaper is not particularly good here. I think I'm just going to Force of Will stock up. Pitching the Tide Shaper. My Wasteland, unfortunately, is not very good. Oh, that's a Force of Will right back. And Copy Artifact. My opponent has 1 card left in hand. I feel like I force back. Now I'm thinking about whether or not I keep the Lord that is generically good, or the Mindspring Merfok, where if I flood out, I draw a bunch of cards. I think I keep the Lord. Alright. there's our interaction. Aether Vial sucks. Yeah. In you go. Land drop the One Ring. No, okay, cool. Math. I have more 2-drops. Vial goes up. Send in for 2. 17. That's wastelandable, and I will wasteland it. I am going to leave this at 2 until I have a reason to tick up. Yeah, that's fine. There may be things like Coveted Jewel in my opponent's deck that I need to keep them off of. And next turn, we can exhaust this to draw a card. Or just turn both my creatures sideways if I draw another Lord. Paying some life. That's a Phyrexian Metamorph. My opponent going to copy this? They are. Interesting. I'll leave that at 2. I just want to hit for 6. It's 6 and then lethal. And everything is going to have Island Walk. I think I don't need the cards. As much as I love value, I think I'm just going to take the damage. And then if my opponent has, like, land the One Ring to fog, then I can use my turn to draw a card and make everybody big. All right. Weird fight over stock up. It worked out. Consign to Memory in. Null Rod in. Force of Negation in. This stuff helps us cover the One Ring and other similar cards. Mistcaller is not particularly strong here. That can come out. Floodpits Drowner isn't great, but it costs 2 mana, and Harbinger of the Sea costs 3. I will probably get rid of Harbinger of the Sea. Do I want to lower my curve and remove 1 True-Name Nemesis for a Harbinger of the Tides? Or just leave a Mistcaller or 2 in? Maybe I will just leave a Mistcaller or 2 in as a creature that just gets bigger from the other lords. And they're all blue cards that pitch to the force effects. Absolutely not. My opponent is on 5. I could just keep aggro beats when my opponent is on 5 and not interact with them. If I do I keep a Vial? I think I mulligan this. I think it's too important to have the first piece of interaction. Hell yeah. Like, this would be a keepable 4-card hand even. So one of those goes back, and then I think I will be willing to take some self-damage later if necessary. Opponent is going to 4. This matters a lot less when you can just keep, like, Island, Ancient Tomb stock up, and your hand is perfectly reasonable off of just those 3 cards. Yes. This sort of thing is why I was so keen on mulliganing to, like, a Null Rod, a Consign to Memory, a Force of Will, a Force of Negation. Like, something disgusting probably comes down this turn. It doesn't. Lucky. Well, yep. We're the bad guy now. Yep, no, that's honestly fair. This is perhaps not a victory for Merfolk, as much as it is a victory for the $150 sideboard card. Go budget magic. Do I believe in Aether Vial this much? I don't think so. That's not great, but it's what we're keeping. So we're going to have a Lord into a pretty sticky True Name. We're bad against combo here. It is a Flooded Strand. There's been a lot of, like, Stoneblade style mid-rangey decks in either blue-white or Esper colors on the channel recently. I don't think those decks are successful as a whole in the metagame, but I sure am seeing people fucking around with it. This is looking to be the same thing. I don't want True-Name Nemesis to just eat a Force of Will. Like, if something gets forced, I want it to not be this. This turn is probably not great one way or another. Like, my opponent is almost certainly going to be a Swords to Plowshares removal type deck. I don't think I can just attack in pre-combat and try to push 2 points of damage. There's Prismatic Ending. Sure. So we're hoping for no counterspell, so True Name can just go the distance. Because my opponent probably has very few outs to this if this resolves. And it does. Now, my opponent could be playing some Terminus or Supreme Verdict style cards, but otherwise, this is 7 turns till death, which is a long time. Like, that would be turn 11, but it is sticky. We've got the fetch to clear that Brainstorm. All right, so my ideas of having Bowmasters as a thing that I care about was real. Sure. I think I want to keep both of these as spells, so I don't think I'm going to make the land drop to hold up Sync with Stupor after this. We're sending in for 4. Opponent's at 14. We are hoping to just, like, tempo play our opponent twice from here. The Master of the Pearl Trident does not give itself Island Walk, so I can't successfully attack into Baleful Strix with it here. We could be eating a Kaito. We are. So, this is a thing. Swords is good. Opponent going for the emblem here rather than the raw card draw. Well, I believe that we are ignoring Kaito. Back you. Got a Force of Will over there? Oh, you don't. You're on a 2-turn clock. And this is that kind of free win stuff that I was talking about, where, like, you have some cards that against certain decks, they are just damningly powerful. Harbinger of the Seas was the biggest one that I imagined in saying that, but True-Name Nemesis versus a slow, dirtily control deck like this that is looking to grind value over time, like, it is very, very rough. Yeah, so the Kaito can't do anything through True-Name. Yep, your Teferi is fine. Would you like to, say, bounce your Baleful Strix? No, that is no targets, just straight up draw a card. Does not feel good. The opponent is surveilling 2. I did not lose life this turn, so they do not get to draw a card. They junk 2 cards. They need, like, some sort of Toxic Deluge style card. Again, we are ignoring the Planeswalkers. Just sending at face. Opponent goes to 4. I will Wasteland, and then I don't think I need to Sync to Stupor any of these permanents, so I will hold up Otawara. I don't even know what I would be Otawara-ing. Yeah. True-Name Fox. I guess Mistcaller technically has some words in its text box here. So conceptually, what's my game plan? Play a 3-drop and win with it. It doesn't necessarily have to be True-Name. Like, there's some times where Harbinger of the Seas is just going to obliterate my opponent's 3-color mana base. I might want Dismembers. I might just sometimes need to deal with a Kaito or another similar value creature. Harbinger of the Tides is also something that I can consider. 4 mana for Flash is rough, but 2 mana off Vial is fine. Let's go down on Mistcallers. Down on Tideshaper. Tideshaper is just a 1 mana 2/2. Because our opponent is basically always going to control an island. We don't need to manually buff that. So it's never Lords. It's never True-Name. I don't think it's ever Harbinger of the Seas. I don't think it's ever the Mindspring Merfolk. I could just not do this and trim one of these. I think I'm going to keep the Floodpits Drowner. This does not do anything immediately. But this is set up for me to draw a powerful 3-drop and take over the game with it. Oh, that's great for me. I'm going to lose Master of the Pearl Trident here, I think. Because then my hand kind of does nothing. I am correct. So let's obliterate opponent's land. Aether Vial looking great as always. Good job, bud. Apt Mystic Sanctuary. Sure. Now I have too much reactive stuff in my hand and not enough proactive stuff. The Vial is also just largely redundant with Cavern of Souls here. Otawara. Better than drawing a regular land, but it is not good. What are you doing? Narset resolves. Sure. This is obviously not great. I am falling behind. Just draw True-Name Nemesis, huh? Fuck. So now my opponent has just gotten 2 cards out of Narset and has Teferi as well. I haven't drawn a blue card for Force of Will. I haven't drawn a threat. I am sad about this. Yep. Oh my god. I should consider conceding. My opponent has 7 cards, 2 Planeswalkers. I have 0 relevant things to do. But True-Name Nemesis is so incredibly strong, and it will be uncounterable. I probably can't concede. I could just rip True-Name off the top, and my opponent dies. So that Ponder shuffled, so my opponent's not going to Prismatic Vista shuffle immediately. Are you gonna fucking Vendilion click me in my draw step? What are you doing? Oh, sorcery speed, Thoughtseize. You got it. There ain't shit over here. Everything sucks. There's no good cards for you to take. Go home. I lost the Force of Will before that became hard castable this turn. Now this can return a Planeswalker. I don't really think that I need to do that. I forgot to play out my Aether Vial. Fairy pluses. That is Kaito, who is a 3/4 creature. I can't do things with flash speed right now. That's actually problematic, right? So I messed up my previous turn. On my previous turn, I should have Otawara the Teferi out of play and dismembered the Kaito. I didn't see that until I had already clicked through the turn. And I messed that up, so I might not get another opportunity to. As Kaito is currently a 4/5, if my opponent pluses again, I just don't get to dismember, or I have to double dismember, which is kind of gross. That's fine. So my opponent made me lose life, so they can actually draw a card with Kaito. That's island cycling there. I'm a little surprised to see that, because we are getting to the point where that is a reasonable castable card, but maybe my opponent just has enough stuff on board that they just need to continue casting spells from their hands to supplement this. Lord. I'm thinking about whether or not I'm sending damage at face, or whether or not I want to try to check Planeswalkers. I think I am just sending at face. But as we saw last game, True-Name is really sticky. Now I think upkeep, I am going to attempt to bounce that out of play, and then dismember Kaito. I don't think it is going to work. I think it is going to get countered. Oh wait, it's hexproof. Fuck. Where are the words for that? And has hexproof. Okay, it's at the very end. Yeah, so my whole dismember thing that I talked through was not valid. So do I actually cast a dismember then? Say no. This gets bounced. I will be able to vial it back in. I will put vials on 2 and 3. Take a decent amount of damage here. I'm not taking enough from either one of these that I think it is worth dismembering for life. Neither one of those is going to deal me 4 points of damage individually. Stack these vials in the other way. It is probably not going to matter. Ooh, stun counter. That's just an ambush creature as well. That's totally fine. So, send at your face. Opponent is at 5. So opponent can do stuff at flash speed, has 8 cards in hand. Am I just stunning you? I think I am just stunning you. Notably, this currently has Island Walk. I think I take this hit. I don't think I chump block it. I think I am just trying to kill next turn. Not sure that that happens through 7 cards. I think I am trying. Would like to draw a creature here. It is an Aether Vial. So I've got 2 choices. I can go for the kill, and if my opponent has nothing, they die. Oh wait, shit, this has Vigilance, doesn't it? It does have Vigilance. I don't need to attack with this. This attack does not do much, unless Swords gets pushed here. I can also dismember this and make it so that my opponent has to deal with both of these creatures. But I have to make my decision right now because I can't play stuff with Flash. I guess if my opponent has 1 removal spell, this does 3 damage, so I do need the other attacker. Alright, I am dismembering. That means I'm all in. I'm going to probably die to Kaito if this does not work. I cannot cast a second dismember. Attack face. Instant speed, Supreme Verdict. Kaito kills me, and Kaito always would have killed me if that is the case. Okay. I had some slightly better lines that game in terms of, like, attacking Kaito, bouncing Kaito. I don't think any of those ends in me winning the game. I think the Supreme Verdict always just beats me. So I forgot about hexproof on Kaito. So this is not as good as I thought. I just want some raw bodies in, probably. Just things that physically can attack. Baleful Strix's body did not seem overly important. About Harbinger of the Tides. That and Floodpits Drowner are probably about the same. Tide Shaper or a Harbinger. Just as this comes out of the gates faster. Plays a 2/2 on 1, a 1/1 on 2, and then Force of Wills my opponent's first Planeswalker. That feels mid. This also feels mid, but I'm keeping it. Okay. I guess I will keep Vial. I'm going to put this back in the deck so I could draw this later. I'm almost certainly using these two as lands to cast stuff. Really, do I even shuffle in this deck? Maybe I don't shuffle in this deck. No shuffle on Ponder. I think I just put all of the 1-drops in play, so the 1-drops can attack immediately next turn. And then I will Vial in the Lord so I don't lose the Lord to a Force of Will. We've got a Delta. I mean, that's annoying. Just a little short of tempo to be able to do what I would like to do. I'll just put in the Mistcaller as well. I mean, that's an awkward draw. Yes, I could try to draw a card here. Or sorry, I could try to put a +1/+1 counter on these Merfolk immediately here. I don't think I want to do that. Island Walk here obviously is great. I think I am going to leave Vial on 2. That's a shuffle. Prismatic Ending is very good for my opponent here. These are back to 1/1s, so another Bowmaster would be live. I think I leave this at 2. Drawing a Lord is very strong here. Hey, it's a Lord. So we get Island Walk again. And we're just trying to crash in and kill my opponent before they stabilize with their larger planeswalkers and stuff that goes over the top of what I'm doing. The lower I get their life total, the less that I have to do with the True-Name Nemesis at the end of all of this. Teferi's good here. I suppose what my opponent does with it is kind of interesting, right? You don't really want to bounce this out of play. I just Vial it back in. You could bounce the Vial out of play so that I can't do 3-drops, or you can just bounce one of the attackers out of play. Another Merfolk. That I probably just hold for Force of Will. I think I ignore Teferi and attack my opponent for 4. Oh, wait. Force of Will, though. Okay. No. I'll attack Teferi with 1. Attack my opponent with the other. Did not get disrupted by Force of Will. I will replay Vial. Now I'm in an okay Merfolk spot where I have a decent amount of power in play. Like, this is a 2-turn clock, assuming the fetch. Supreme Verdict is horrifying, though. Supreme Verdict gets around Force of Will. 5th land drop. Fuck. I'm not going to block in case there's another Bowmaster, but this sure smells like Supreme Verdict, and I lose. The 2 points of life are just borderline irrelevant. 18. Yeah, I mean, what you gonna do? 3 True-Name hits is the conceptual game plan. I am going to Wasteland. There's like this to think about, but I think it's more likely that I end up Force of Willing a Planeswalker or some other mid-range card advantage thing. Mystic Sanctuary. Opponent going for Prismatic Ending. Yeah, I will let you answer the Vial. That's fine. Rough. I don't care about the Prismatic Ending draw. To clarify, this is still what was the problem. And honestly, I think it's possible that my opponent should have just put the Supreme Verdict back in their hand and played a longer game. That is fine. Like, I am fully expecting that I'm never going to draw a card with this game. This is my Force of Will fodder. And then I'm just hoping that there is not a Kaito right here. Can I catch a fucking break, man? Yeah. That gets around the counterspell. I don't think I'm supposed to play around that because my opponent can just, like, pay 4 mana for it. It just sucks. Now we are playing towards True-Name. I need to cast a creature. Do I do the 2/2? I think I have to do the 2/2 because of Bowmaster. I'm going to just turn Swamp into an island here. Opponent is down to 6. That's 2 True-Name hits. We're so close. And again, I think Force of Will is protecting a future True-Name or stopping a Planeswalker that is cast. I can't really block this, right? Yeah, I can't really block that. Down to 6. That's fine. It's good value. Don't think I win by countering that. True-Name Nemesis off the top. No. I think I will go ahead and tap out here. Supreme Verdict, very good against my Merfolk deck. I am willing to keep this 1-land Aether Vial hand. I have a Force of Will to check something broken. I think I need to defend my Vial, given that I do not have land here. So, let's do this. Alright, Vial resolved. Now I just get to hopefully dump Lords everywhere and take over this game in a fair capacity. It would be really cool to draw a land to be able to deploy an extra card immediately. Basic lands are good. That is a 1 power creature currently, but it is going to scale up quickly. I think I counter that. I could get dazed back or something, but my opponent didn't have the counterspell previously. That's fine. Yeah, anyway. Foul Bomb. Sign of a healthy metagame, right? This is not what I want to be drawing at this point. If Delver doesn't flip, I will attempt to trade Mistcaller for it. But Delver does flip. So I'm at 15. This is fine. Basically, anything that's not a creature is fine. It's my opponent putting in extra bodies that becomes scary to me. The fuck is that? It attacks, reveal the top card of your library, put it into your hand. You lose life equal to its mana value if it isn't settled. Otherwise, each opponent loses that much life. Okay, got it. So we will vial in a friend. Yeah, I mean, I would really like to deploy multiple of these at the same time, but that will happen next turn, I guess. So now we have Island Walk, so I can go ahead and get in there. This next turn is kind of a big turn for my opponent. If they don't have a good turn, my stuff gets real big. So Bronco trigger, my opponent loses 1 to Brainstorm. I don't think I want to offer this trade. I think I will just take 5. This is fine. I am about to have 5 Merfolk in play, and my damage will be unblockable. And, like, 1 removal spell is not actually all that scary. There's the fetch for that Brainstorm. Alright, there's more Bronco. That I don't like. So 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I will need to block 1 thing next turn, which I should be able to do pretty easily. This vial is already at 2, so no to this one. Yes to this one. I am Lord. Yeah. So I think I go ahead and attack for the 12 and leave back 2 blockers. I guess Caustic Bronco saddle stuff could get a little weird. We'll deal with that when and if it happens. Opponent is at 3. They probably cannot attack with a Caustic Bronco without saddling it. Alright. So there goes my graveyard. We're shoving. First one, reveals Scalding Tarn. Second one, reveals Thoughtseize. Sure. So 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, okay. So opponent realizes that I block and that they are dead on the backswing. That was very close. To Vial's credit, Vial was pretty good that game. Dumping in all of his lords uncounterably was a big deal. I like Dismember. I like Harbinger of the Tides here. Ghost Vacuum is maybe playable. If I get ahead on board, Harbinger of the Seas is interesting. Like, it will probably shut off all of my opponent's mana and just turn it into islands. But I'm going to be behind a lot of the time. Mistcaller is not great. I don't really love my Force of Will. It sets me up for, like, days blowouts. I might just need it on the draw, though. Like, on the draw, maybe I cut Harbinger of the Seas, and then maybe on the play I cut Force of Will. That seems valid. This is fine. I think that's all it is fine. My mana is not necessarily stable here. I think I'm going to try to Dismember that rather than Force of Will it. I'll Dismember off of Wasteland. That way I don't lose a blue source immediately. If my opponent Wastelands back. The Delver still gets 4 points of damage this way, so, like, this is not necessarily a bad thing for my opponent. Second land drop. A Nether Goyf. That just comes back later. Kind of would like to keep the board clear, though. I think I am going to force. I would rather have forced that. Ooh, nice. So Cavern on Merfolk. Cast with Kicker. I might actually do this on my own Wasteland. In case my Cavern gets Wastelanded, I can still Master of the Pearl Trident next turn. A little weird. Delver trigger. Dodged. Nice. Ooh. Losing True-Name is rough here. Delver doesn't get to attack. That's cool. I would rather Master of the Pearl Trident in the short term, though. And we know it's going to resolve. The question is now, does my opponent have a removal spell? And if so, what do they hit? I think you kill the Master if you can. Yep. Opponent's down to 14. It's currently a pretty close game in my estimation. I think either one of us can just rip a card off the top. Like, my opponent getting a Goyf of any nature would be scary. If I get a True-Name, that's terrifying. This is pretty good tempo on my end. Oh no, you find Goif? Or is it just this one coming back? Because it's fine if that's the case. Okay, that's only a 2-3 right now. Could be worse. Ooh, I like that. I don't have Island Walk or anything right now. So I think we're just going to do this. Tap this down, and I will just attempt to continue to stay competitive in terms of the race. This does have the ability where I can shuffle it in if necessary. Wasteland on a Cavern is fine for my opponent. Yep. But I still have blue because I played ahead with Tideshaper. Alright. Opponent continues to stay aggressive. Dismember. I don't think I do that. I think it's just better to Floodpits Drowner in the short term. Send in. Opponent goes down to 7. And then in their upkeep, I think I tap this one down since it blocks better. Now my opponent might be forced to go on the defensive with the Delver. No. I am at 6. They are facing down 6 damage and potentially lethal damage if I draw a Lord. Alright, they've gotten rid of Tideshaper. This is now awkward for me. Well, I'm always attacking for 4. 100% of the time that is happening. So let's start there. Opponent is at 3 life. Now I think I need to dismember the Delver. I can do this in a way... Oh no, I tapped my goddamn land wrong. This requires actual blue mana. I fucked up. Opponent conceded anyway. Good. Alright, so I was going to leave open the option to get rid of this. And I did not leave open that option. I guess if I want to do that option, I have to take it immediately, right? Because on their turn, the stun counter goes away. Could have tightened up there. Could have considered shuffling preemptively. I guess I just have lethal on board. That was tense. Alright, final round. We're 2-2 here. This opponent tends to play Maverick-style stuff. I have an okay Aether Vial hand, but Vial is probably going to be slow here relative to my opponent's mana dorks. I don't think I use Force of Will on enablers here. I think my Force of Will needs to be saved for impactful 3-drops. You know, the Grists, the Night of the Reliquaries, that sort of stuff. I can Force of Will while keeping 2 Lords here. My opponent, unfortunately, is just, like, not going to have an island unless I give them one. And their creatures are likely to end up bigger than my creatures. Oh, god damn it. Yeah. Alright, opponent's going to try to greed and transform that, which will potentially allow me to slip a creature into play with it. That is interesting. Am I casting that? Am I vialing that in as a 1/1? That's really a 2/2? It might be. I could also vial this in and just pivot a little bit from what I was planning on doing, change this to my Force of Will pitch. I could cast this or this as well. I think I'm going to pass the turn and have this available. Oh, fuck, right. That's why I didn't want to do that. Whatever. If I snipe a green sun for X equals 3, I'll look like a genius. That's fine. So I'm going to activate that. I'm going to put this in. I'm fine with just taking 3 damage. And then I'll cast the Hex Catcher and go to town from there. That is probably too annoying to let resolve. Let's pitch the Tideshaper there. Then end of turn. Loop in a Lord. Kind of feel... Really? Over this? I mean, I'm game. Force of Will is not what I am looking for here. Am I fine wastelanding my opponent? Probably. They're just going to give their Creature Shroud in response. That's fine. And then I'll start trying to get in there. I don't like how this game is going, though. Ramunap. That makes the wasteland play pretty bad. I can also, like, sacrifice flagstones, search out a thing, and replay flagstones, which is pretty cute. Alright, land drop from graveyard. We'll see if I'm taking 2 damage or if my opponent's going to try to just turtle up. Turtle up. Did not go for, like, a surveil land there. So I am not happy trading Master for the 2 of these, or just for Ramunap. I think I am unfortunately chilling. I think my opponent gets to accrue some nice card advantage while this is happening. There's that fetch land again. I'm fine taking the damage from this. That obviously feels like a trap. I think I'll just take the hit. I don't think I am in a position to call that. I can call that next turn with Force of Will back up, depending on what I draw, whether or not it's worth casting. I can trade both of my creatures for that. That does not seem profitable. Just don't think I win if I go to 0 board here. That is a knight. That's pretty bad. If my next draw step isn't good, I probably just concede. My opponent can sacrifice the island that I give them to Sylvan Safekeeper. Yeah, I think I can tap out here. Harbinger of the Tides is good. Dismembers are good. Harbinger of the Seas is high variance, but could be quite strong. Could potentially just get rid of my Force of Wills here and just try to beat down. Or I could just trim 4 creatures. I think I am going to get rid of the Force of Wills and just try to be low to the ground beat down that has some ability to fuck with the creatures once they're in play. Now, this is a weird one that I'm going to keep. This probably aggressively dismembers some creatures and then tries to curve Master into True-Name. Mox Diamond resolves and Wasteland. You've got it. This is great for tempo for me, even though my opponent is ahead due to Mox Diamond. So I will play Master and pass the turn. And then sometimes next turn, I deal 7 damage to myself as I dismember and sink into Stupor at the same time. I don't really want to do that. Cool. Thinking the Stupor just gets wastelanded. Yeah, no, this sucks. Assuming my opponent has anything to follow this up, I am dead. Just gonna put this one into play tapped. Echoing Deeps as another wasteland. Oh no. That's fine. That's less fine. This is exactly 5/5. Cavern on Merfolk. Dismember the Knight. Hit in for 2. I need to top deck another land to get this other Master into play. Yuck. So, I did not get the other land. I'll send it Grist, but Grist can still just trade for this next turn, unfortunately. We got a Mistcaller. It's not doing a lot. My opponent even doesn't necessarily have to just minus the Grist. The plus is bad enough. I mean, yeah. On board, Trick is on board. We take those. Opponent opts not to attack. I have no valid plays this turn. So now the Grist can minus and clear out Master. And I think at that point I'm terminally behind. Okay, that's good for me. That's bad for me. And I'm going to start taking chip damage, but it's really not chip damage because I've dismembered twice. So I need to put multiple Lords in play so that this True-Name can eventually live. Would I trade Plague Engineer for a Master? Yes. I also just think my opponent is either not going to block this one or just jump with an Insect token. Yeah. Attack was free. It is another Green Sun. They overpaid for an Elvish Reclaimer. Okay, now that my opponent is minusing Grist, I do not think I can win anymore. The way that it was possible for me to win was my opponent leaving the creatures and letting me accumulate. I just don't think that is happening anymore, and Vial is far too slow to matter here. We did our best, but that choke was brutal. Alright, so overall thoughts on the deck list. As far as being on a budget goes, this is a solid budget list. You have the ability to interact with your opponents, you get to make meaningful decisions. My games on average were short enough that the exhaust abilities never came up on here, and the Floodpits Drowner ability never came up, but I had options available to me. There was some degree of intricacy in tide shapering my own lands to fix my mana. Generally speaking, despite the fact that I really dislike Merfolk as an archetype, you have a couple of oops, I win buttons. This is not all that bad as far as a budget deck goes. Would I necessarily recommend to go out and buy this? No, I absolutely would not. But this is a solid budget thing if you have a bunch of these cards lying around already because you play it in Modern or something like that. This is a fine entry point into Legacy as a way to kind of dip your toes into the format. But again, there is a tier 1 deck that perhaps needs to have cards banned from it that is, half of what this deck on screen is. So Oops All Spells, if it doesn't get a card banned in the next week, would probably be the budget entry point that I would recommend for Legacy. With that being said, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you need some cards, you know where to go. All right, see ya!